We now have a clear picture of exactly which GM products the batteries made in Lordstown will be used for. This past week, GM unveiled 3 motors that will be powered by those Ultium batteries made at the Lordstown plant. And the motors are designed for a wide spectrum of vehicle types, from performance cars to work trucks, and many as 3 electric motors can be used in one EV. So joining us to go over his expectations for these, an industry expert that I lean on often in my reporting, auto line analyst John McElroy. John, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. So based on what you know so far about these 3 motors and really the pushing for EV range further without having to upsize the battery, what sets these batteries apart from other vehicles that are already on the market?
Yeah, I mean, General Motors is all in when it comes to electric vehicles. It's getting very vertically integrated. As you noted, it's designed 3 electric motors on its own. It's going to build them in-house. In fact, I believe it's going to go into the Toledo transmission plant where they're going to build those electric motors. And GM's building its own batteries. You know, it's decided the future is going to be electric, and it's not going to do anything else but go headstrong into that. No hybrids, no plug-in hybrids, nothing like that. It's strictly electric.
And that's good news for the jobs here in Ohio, especially Toledo, where they still have a lot of action in the industry. GM is working around the clock to ensure that its new Hummer will use these Ultium batteries, make sure that they don't, have the same defects that the Chevy Bolt fires had. Do you expect potential problems or defects when it comes to the first models of these new batteries that are rolling off the line? Or do you think GM should step up and replace those Chevy Bolt batteries with these new Ultium batteries?
Well, first, the Ultium batteries are a completely different design than what's in the Chevy Bolt, where they've had the problems with the fires. We also know that LG Chem, which makes the battery cells, had some sort of manufacturing defect in its process. Very complicated to trace down the root cause. But as to putting the Ultium batteries in the Chevy Bolts, boy, that would be a major rip-up of the car. It was not designed to take them. It's a completely different shape and form. So I do not expect them to put the Ultium batteries in those bolts.
But you do agree they should use them in the Hummer, and moving forward, that's their plan.
Sure, the Hummer was designed from scratch to use those batteries. In fact, that's what's so impressive about the way that GM's going electric. It's going completely clean sheet. That is, they're not using existing parts. They're starting from scratch, and that's how you get the most efficient electric car possible.
Is it, I guess, optimistic and really good news for U.S. automakers and people working in this industry that they're making those batteries here in the U.S., especially in the Valley?
No question about it. It's extremely important for the United States. You know, China has locked up something like 80% of the supply chain for the raw materials that go into batteries and for the processing of those raw materials. So, for example, there are certain raw materials that are mined right here in the United States, but to get processed, they go all the way to China and then have to come back here again. So it's critically important, even from a national security standpoint, that the United States have its own domestic supply chain, and GM's really at the forefront of that.
Do you expect this to power up the Voltage Valley? Do you think this is the game changer that this region needs? I know all eyes here locally are on our economy, especially the sector that we lost. We'd like to get it back.
Yeah, all I can say is it keeps the Valley in the game. I mean, that battery plant that GM and LG Chem are building there, that is absolutely state of the art. I mean, it's right on the leading edge of things. So it certainly bodes well for the future.
Okay, automakers like Tesla, Toyota criticizing a proposed EV tax incentive that includes extra cash for union-made cars and trucks produced in the U.S. Now, does this really just favor GM and Ford? Do you think it'll pass because Tesla's already crying foul on this?
Yeah, I do not believe it's going to pass because it penalizes American workers who simply decided not to join the UAW. And so, I mean, I can understand giving additional credits to electric cars that are made in the United States versus those that are imported. But I just don't, this is my own personal opinion, I don't see Congress going along with giving the UAW even greater incentives on the electric cars it builds. Because, think about it, there's probably a lot of hourly workers at non-GM and Ford plants who, looked at the UAW and said, "My gosh, this place is racked with corruption. Two of the past presidents are in the federal penitentiary right now." And while there's a lot of good people in the UAW, it's pretty clear at the leadership level, it has been corrupt.
Yeah, I think a lot of families, I grew up in one of them, we made our living and we grew up and were able to support families with a union auto working job. Do you think if they did pass something that favored American workers, not just union ones, that would be maybe something easier for them to agree with? And would that help our U.S. economy?
I would agree totally. I think that there is a very good chance of having more incentives for American-made EVs. I mean, let's get down to it. It's taxpayer money. Shouldn't we be supporting American workers rather than those who are overseas? So I totally agree with you that there could be additional incentives for American-made EVs, but not necessarily those made by UAW workers.
All right, yeah, you just wonder, common sense, not so common though. You wonder what's going on in their heads. But finally, I really want to quickly get to the fact that we have a chip shortage. We have a lot of dealerships that are looking at this issue, especially with their inventory going into the new year. Prices are up. Do you think this is going to last, and how long?
Yeah, the chip shortage, by what everybody's saying in the industry, it's going to last well into next year. And as for car prices, I don't expect them to come down. The automakers love how much money that they're making on these things. And so even when the chips are available, they're not going to build as much excess inventory as they did in the past.
Got it. All right. So I guess we won't see those end of year deals as much as we used to. Thank you so much for joining us, John, from Autoline. I really appreciate your time as always.
Thanks.